Okay, folks, we'll give it just one more minute to allow for a few more folks to join and we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 Legislative Kickoff. I'm Gary Clark, your president and CEO. We'll be recording today's event. Thank you to our elected officials for your leadership as we move into 2022. We know that we have several of you on today. We appreciate your leadership and dedication. I want to start off by thanking you all for joining us today. I believe we are scheduled to have over 200 attendees this morning, so thank you for your time. Advocacy is essential and an essential component actually to our efforts here at Economic Alliance. As the countywide chamber and economic development organization, we are poised to bring together businesses, nonprofits, public entities to push for economic vitality in Snohomish County. Your attendance and engagement with our legislators today is critical to our work. We are truly grateful for your participation. With that, I would like to extend our gratitude to our sponsors today. Boeing, the Boeing Company, as you see here, and Community Transit. I also have the pleasure of introducing Rich White, Government Relations Manager of the Boeing Company. He's here with us. Rich, I would like to invite you to say a few words.
Great. Thanks, Gary. I just wanted to say Happy New Year to everyone, and hopefully folks have a very prosperous new year. I think we as a company are very excited for this opportunity to sponsor this event. We really are committed to this community and all the work that this organization does in the community. And as Gary so well iterated before, you know, the work that this organization does on behalf of the business community in terms of its advocacy in Olympia and in DC is very critical to our ability to have a competitive business environment and for us to be do all the things that we do in the community that are important for our employees and our families. So with that, just very thankful for the opportunity to sponsor this event. Welcome to the elected officials. Look forward to the legislative session coming up. And I will turn it over now to Misha to sort of run the rest of the program. Over to you. Thanks.
All right. Good morning. Hello. Hello. Thank you again to everyone for joining us here today. Before we hear from our legislators, I wanted to set the tone for this year. Obviously, it's a really exciting time to be part of Economic Alliance. Our core team is fully established and we're heading into 2022 taking charge. Here you see our 2022 legislative priorities. This document has been circulating for a while now, so I'm not going to read every little piece of it to you, but I do want to highlight some things. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat or send me an email. Next slide, please. So we all know that economic vitality is required for communities to thrive. At the same time, businesses can only succeed when operating within thriving communities. They go hand in hand. To keep businesses growing and coming to Washington State, we need to remain competitive. There are lots of ways of doing that, and I like all of them, most of them. Additionally, my husband and I purchased our very first home a couple of months ago in Marysville. It's quite the experience, very intense, looking on Zillow and seeing the cost of houses in my neighborhood just a year ago, 2 years ago. Whew, it's rough. And we were able to fight through the process and purchase our home, but not enough of others are able to do so. So increasing the supply of available workforce housing will have a significant positive impact on families across the state and in turn, their employers. So I hate when people read PowerPoints to me, so I will let you read the rest. But Oh, thank you. If you have any questions, let me know, and we will move on to the next slide. Of course, so we need thriving spaces to operate within. The economic vitality of our region also depends on our people. The labor market challenges that we are experiencing require innovation implemented at a local level. And one thing that I personally have experienced challenges with is childcare. So one potential solution that we're thinking about is opening up affordable spots in both childcare and early learning settings so that we can get folks back to work and also invest in our workforce. And for our slightly older community members, we need to make sure that we're continuing to support equitable access to post-secondary pathways. I'm talking apprenticeships, career technical education, traditional higher ed institutions, all of that. And then moving on to infrastructure. Anyone living or working in Snohomish County knows about the transportation related challenges that we deal with around here. We have significant unmet needs that need to be addressed and when the next transportation package does come forward, whether that's next year or the year after, I don't think it's going to be this year. We also need to deal with, when that does come forward, we need to make sure that Snohomish County is front of mind for legislators and that they recognize the vast needs and importance of our region. Also thinking about the digital divide. We really need to get our digitally unserved and underserved folks access to raise the bar for equity in the state. And are there any questions? I don't see any in the chat. But any before I move on? All right. Now that's that for our legislative priorities. And I would like to introduce you all to our one and only Kelly Snyder, Public Works Director of Snohomish County. Kelly.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. Part of my job is to help sort of frame what the transportation needs are within this county. They're fairly similar to what we've seen many times before, but I'm just going to do a quick little overview for you. So just stand by while I share my screen here for a second. All right, you can see a map. Is that what you can see? Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. So let me just do a little highlight. We do an update every year. This is a joint effort between SCIT, Economic Alliance, Snohomish County, cities, the county, local jurisdictions are really involved in helping create this. What you see on, and I cannot forget to mention our wonderful community transit partner as well. So there's a lot of dots, a lot of lines. I'm just going to scroll a little bit on this first page on this map, both from North County to South County. This is far, far more than just colored lines and dots on a map. What is it? What does it mean to us? This means population. This means employment. It means healthy communities, healthy environment for both people and for fish. You know, a lot of these projects will help fix culverts that really contribute towards the health and vitality of the Puget Sound and the fish that are needed to help feed the larger mammals such as our orca. These solutions are for cars, buses, freight, bicycles, and pedestrians. It's not just one thing. It's a multifaceted solution set that really will continue to move goods, services, and people around this region. What you'll also see is a series of WSDOT projects. And, you know, we cannot just have city projects. We cannot just have county projects. These are integrated projects. One cannot be successful without the other. As you know, most of the time, folks don't know if they're traveling on a county road, a city road, or a state road. This is an integrated solution set, very important. And why is it important? And here are some things that I share with legislators when I go to Olympia or testify digitally, that we have the largest concentration of manufacturing jobs in the state. 25% of the county's based jobs are in manufacturing. That is so vital for our region and our employment. We're second in technology-based jobs in the state. That's pretty significant, and I think surprises many legislators when we talk about that. We have 2 innovation partnership zones. That's incredible. For the size of our county, that's amazing and important. And we have a new industrial, although it's not so new, but I still refer to it as a new industrial center in Marysville and Arlington. We have the 2nd largest local economy in the state. That is significant. We also have some of the highest growth rates in the state, 3rd highest in population. Population is continuing to grow. People like Misha and others who are trying to find housing in this region, it is very difficult. And as we see the growth go farther and farther out, transportation is a vital solution to making sure that we can get these wonderful folks to the jobs that we have in this region. So that solution set also includes, as I mentioned, transit and community transit, as well as sound transit. Those are 2 vital pieces. You won't see sound transit specifically on this map, but we do have community transit here. You know that the county and community transit are working together, and the cities are working together to make sure that we bring sound transit to Snohomish County, to Everett, and many stops along the way. So I'm going to switch just down a little bit on this map. On the second side, and I know this is not readable, and happy to share this with anybody who would like it afterwards. Each of the projects are described here in a very quick little synopsis. And we also have them in a series of spreadsheets. We've sliced and diced them depending on what legislators are very interested in, whether it's a fish focus, whether it's maintenance and preservation focus. We are able to work with all the county lobbyists, not just our county, but those who represent cities and other agencies. And we really want to be responsive to what the interests are of particular legislators. Now I'm going to switch to one example for you. Let me know if you can see this. This should be a project sheet, or do I need to reshare? Can you see a project sheet? Okay. So for each of the projects that we have, there's a description, a project sheet that talks about specifically what the needs and benefits are for each of these projects. When we speak with legislators, we have these available. It talks about the timeline and the full request and the funding that has already been provided in many cases for these projects for design, pre-design, or acquisition of property. So this is what we have in our toolkit, and would love to work with any of you with your messaging when you go to Olympia and advocate for your communities. So with that, I'll pause and see if there's any questions. With that, I guess I'll hand it back to you, Misha.
All right, thank you so much. We are moving right along here. I love to see that. More time for us to engage with our wonderful legislators. Let's see here. I know that we have with us, first of all, I don't know if maybe Senator Wagner is not here yet, but with us right here, right now, we do have Representative Emily Wicks of the 38th Legislative District. Emily, would you mind giving us a little introduction to yourself and a little bit about what you're working on?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. It's great to see you all today and gearing up for this crazy session that we're going to have. I'm State Representative Emily Wicks. I represent the 38th Legislative District, which includes my hometown of Marysville, my current city of Washington, and my great partners on the Tulalip Reservation. I'm very excited to chat with you all. It's going to be like being shot out of a canyon. That's what I'm told by everyone. This is actually my first 60-day session, and I'm really pretty nervous about it. There's a lot of work to be done, and I have a lot of work on my plate, but I'm looking forward to working with all of you. And I want to thank everyone. I think I see so many names on this list of folks that have connected with me over the interim, and we all are pretty much on the same page as far as creating those thriving communities, building affordable housing opportunities, and a great transportation system that helps everyone thrive and move forward. A lot of things that I'm working on this year extend from the work I did last year. That includes a hearing aid effort for our children and getting coverage there. It's going to be an uphill battle to get that through. I'm also looking at legislation that I think has a good opportunity of getting through, which would provide a tool for our local cities and counties to do a 1/10 of 1 cent sales tax to with a vote of the people to fund their parks maintenance and development. So that is going to be a big opportunity for us to move forward. And in addition, I'm going to be working on a lot of legislation related to cannabis, which is kind of an interesting space, but I'm on the Commerce and Gaming Committee, and we know that some of our BIPOC members and our social equity candidates have been left out of the cannabis industry for some time. It's something that has historically targeted our Black and Brown friends through the illicit market, and now that it's legal, it's doing a little bit of the same thing through no fault of anyone, but is definitely creating an economic disparity there. So I'm working on correcting those pieces of it and also bringing some more opportunities for our cities and counties and local governments to receive more funds through the algorithm, because we are making more and more money off of the cannabis industry, and our cities and counties definitely want to see that. So that's something that is top of mind for me. There's also a lot of ways to work on great things for our communities that don't include legislation, but also include working on our budgets and budget provisos. And so I have been partnering with a few folks, including the Port of Everett, to get some increase in finances there. We're working on multiple different things that would help that, not only help Everett, but would help all of our seaports, our major ones, and also some of the more rural ones. We're working with Evergreen Recovery Centers as they build their opioid treatment center and their neonatal center, and Interface Shelter in their effort to purchase the building and provide some short-term shelter to our families. I'm working on other things as well as a family reading time program with Humanities Washington, working with our Snohomish County delegation on their work at the Welcoming Center to support Afghan refugees, and also on a non-driver study with the disability community to really talk about our multimodal needs and our transit needs. So really covering a little bit of everything on here to build that. And I am so thankful again for everyone for all your work over the interim to just give me your feedback, give me your the information. And I know, you know, I always use it takes a village in terms of my work on the Children, Youth, and Families Committee, but it really takes a village to make a great community for Snohomish County. And so I just want to thank everyone for all of their input, all of their feedback, and all of their advocacy. Kelly Snyder, we had some great opportunities to go and tour the sites, and I'm really ready to push forward in the Transportation Committee as much as possible to fulfill our goals of getting the Connecting Washington projects through. Really excited to work with the new chair in the Senate, Senator Leas, and I think even if we don't get a package through, we will have some great opportunities on the transit side, so and transportation side. So thank you so much. Sorry I went on for a little bit, but just happy to be here, and please feel free to reach out to me during session, and I will do my best to communicate with all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Representative Wicks. And of course, Senator Leas was slated to be here with us today, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. And Representative Eslick is out sick, so send her your best wishes. But we are, as we wait on Senator Wagner to join us, we can ask him this question when he gets here. We will start with you. Given the positive economic forecast, an influx of resources through COVID relief and the IIJA, what are you excited about heading into session? You talked a little bit about what you're working on, but what are you most excited about?
I am so sorry. I was responding to some of the comments that people have in the chat, and I completely cannot multitask. Gosh, what am I excited? I'm really excited to get some budget provisos through. I think, you know, with the impact of the Build Back Better program and the transportation infrastructure plan, all of the money that's coming in, I think we can do some really great short-term things to build up the necessary resources to move forward. I know that a lot of my budget provisos, we're taking money out, and putting it in to these important things, but I think they're really money saving efforts. So when we invest in the families at the recovery center, we do early intervention right there for a lot of our families. And that really connects to the work that I did last year on the first clinic, which does early intervention for parents who might be connected with CPS because of substance use disorders, but getting them immediately connected to the services, immediately put into treatment, and being able to help them stay with their families or with their children, that keeps kids out of the foster care system and ensures that we're really saving money in the long term. So I see a lot of these opportunities to invest in our communities as ways to really bolster our economy. We've seen over the last from 2020 to 2021 that sales tax has increased 33.6% across Washington state. And I think that that is a direct connection to the effort and the work that we put in from those federal dollars and to investing on the state side to make sure that we're keeping people going. So we still have a long way to go. Workforce is really difficult, but I think making these just short-term investments will have long-term impacts and really create some opportunities for others. So also just looking forward to working from home. I know that that sounds crazy for a lot of people, but I love being in Olympia, but I love the fact that I get to sit here in my home in Everett, surrounded by my community members, knowing that people can walk by and that I'm upstairs doing this important work. And that, in the evening I can, order food from a local restaurant and participate with everyone in the community. I'm so excited I get to participate in the Martin Luther King event on Friday. It might go virtual with the YMCA, but just the idea that I could be there means a lot to me, and that I can be with all the folks in this community. So I am, I'm looking on the bright side of life here.
Thank you for that. And we have a question in the comments here. What can you do to assure that the social service workforce can be paid a living wage so they can afford to do the work they do so passionately?
Thank you so much for that question. That is going to be a really big issue. We've had so many folks reach out to us about rate increases, and for good reason, because the rate increases have not sustained with the cost of living, and we need to get it there. So I've kind of collected all of the information from all of the different groups that have reached out to me in the interim, and I know that there's some efforts both in the governor's budget to increase that. I know it's not enough. Again, we are a little bit, I say it really, that there's a lot of great short-term money that can go into that. But I think the question is on the long-term side, how can we sustain that going forward? So I will do my best to advocate for that, continue to reach out to me so that we can share that with the necessary folks. I know Rep. Sells is working on the labor front. I know that there's a lot of discussion in the healthcare committee on that. And so, it's not directly in my committee, but I will do as much as I possibly can to advocate for rate increases and to make sure that folks are paid appropriately. Because you're putting so much effort and time and work, and it's stressful. We're all stressed out, and I can't even imagine what it's like to work in those social services. So we really need to bolster that, and part of that is with wages. So thank you for that question, and not a super great answer, but definitely something that's top of mind.
Thank you. I hope you don't mind us just asking you questions.
No, it's fine.
Okay, great. Okay, so just thinking about healthcare, that triggered a thought in my brain. Obviously, the conversation around long-term care is a little bit sticky. What are your thoughts? What do you anticipate on the future of that conversation moving into this session?
Yeah, well, it's definitely really an interesting conversation. I'll tell everyone that I'm very supportive of an effort to get long-term care in place. In fact, I had a call from a constituent that I really thought was going to push back on the long-term care trust account, but when he reached out, he was actually complaining about their private long-term care account. And that's the reason that we put this in place. So many people are, first of all, they're using fax and letters, snail mail, to be able to do some of this work, and they're canceling coverage on people. His father had purchased the plan, and his mother is now on it, and she has up to 500,000 that she could potentially be using, but they make it really difficult. And his comment was, I know how to manage the system, I know how to get through this, but so many people don't know how. So, I really look at the long-term care plan as, not just like a necessary resource for those who don't have access, who have never had long-term care, but a supplement for those who can afford more. You can, use those funds to pay for a lot of different things. We're not going to cancel on you. They're going to make sure that you don't pay if you're not working. You automatically get those funds, but there are a lot of things that have not quite been worked out yet. And I was a little concerned that, some of the insurance companies were bombarded with it. And what I'm hearing too from folks in the insurance world is that they thought they would be ready, but they weren't. So it's, they kind of knew it was coming, but that requirement that you had to have that cutoff really surprised them. So with the governor kind of stalling some of those things, that's been really important. And I will say that the House and Senate have chosen not to take those dollars out. So if there's any businesses that are talking about the risks for the time being, I think the best thing to do is maybe not take that money out, but that's something that folks have to think about whether they want to reimburse that if that's the case. But we also need to make sure that we're working on, the people that don't quite fit into that 10-year plan, and then also people that go out of state. I understand that if you give $1 to the government, you want to get that money back. And so those are a few pieces that they're working on. And I know there was a bill dropped the other day that is going to address at least the age limit. So I really believe strongly in this. I see it very similar to the paid family medical leave legislation, which has been so meaningful for so many women. And I think this will be so meaningful for all of us as we age. And it will ensure that people don't have to spend down all of their savings to be able to qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, which is what people have been doing now. It really creates that safety net for a lot of people. Sorry, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of thoughts here in the chat. Base housing. Okay, yeah, we can follow up, Carmen, and get you connected to the right folks there. Emily, did you have any thoughts on that?
Which one I can't see the one from Carmen. Sorry. I'm scrolling up. What was Carmen's comment? Sorry. I don't see it.
For the last 6 years, I've worked with military families who are relocating to the area. As Misha mentioned, housing is very difficult and costly to get into. Base housing consists of only 140 homes, and the basic allowance for housing paid to military members is not enough to pay the rent. Who would be a great person to reach out to in order to discuss this issue further?
Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll connect you. I'm thinking about a few folks on the top of my head, but with that, it did, before I saw that it was about housing, we are working on a few different bills around licensing too, because our military families who maybe bring a nursing license or other license from another state have a really hard time getting through that process and the licensing process. So we're going to work on speeding that up. So I do think, that's just connected on the making sure our military families are supported and are able to get to work as soon as possible. So there's a few things on that as well. And then another thing that's kind of connected to that is we are working on a Purple Star families effort with our schools. So that might be something we work directly with OSPI on. And those are schools that in our district that will be recognized for going above and beyond for the military families that come in and provide support. So I think that there could be some really great opportunities there for our schools and our social services to be able to connect with our military families and get them the housing that they need. But I'd love to explore this issue more fully because although I knew that it's new to me talking about it this year. So love to connect. And I can throw my email in the chat for folks that don't have it.
All right. Senator Wagner should be joining us at any moment here. And if not, we'll just keep going. So thinking about session, once again, we talked about what you're excited about. Could you share a little bit about what challenges you're anticipating? You talked a little bit in the beginning about the short session aspect.
Yeah, I think time is always going to be a challenge. I got a message from Lana Rip, who works with our legislative assistants, and she said, I've never been more, worried, I think, about just people's capacity in a year like this. And it's definitely, although I think we've been working all interim long, and that COVID is really, and I'm sure every elected official, everyone here in any capacity you're working in knows that you're on all the time. We are connected to our computers, and although, it's great that we can do virtual meetings, it's almost like, when we were able to leave our house too and go to a meeting, it added on. It created a lot of different layers and more work for all of us. So I think we're really feeling the pinch. There's so much more that I think is expected of all of us. We expect a lot of others expect a lot of us. And it's just this, kind of overflow. So I'm trying, to, it's going to be a challenge, but I think the biggest challenge for me and all of us is just to say, we're going to work as hard as we can. We're going to do what we can do, and we're going to be okay with doing what we can do and expecting that. So, just maintaining our calm on there. So it's going to be a challenge. And I think people need to have some expectations too around that, knowing that we can only do so much. And that's going to be really hard because we have so many important issues that are coming through. And I'm already seeing some of my priorities get, kind of on the back burner just for the lack of time. Time is everything. We all have 24 hours in a day. And I think time is that great equalizer for all of us that we can all recognize. So I hate saying time, but it really is short session time, all of that. A lot of things are going to get moved on to the next year.
Yes, 'tis the nature. But you all are gonna get a lot of great work done. And I don't know, I think it's going to be a good year, even if it's a short session. Then thinking about our transportation budget a little bit, if you don't mind switching gears, there's been a little bit of conversation about potential short-term and or long-term operating budget support for the transportation budget. What are your thoughts on that? What might that look like?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier how important it's going to be to live up to our promises, especially in connecting Washington. And I think that is the number one thing that we need to make sure we do. We definitely need to get the 529 I-5 project done for my district. I think for everyone, that's a really important project. So many of our folks in Marysville, I'm sure, Misha, where your new home is, you've experienced that 4th Avenue, traffic and getting on the freeway. It's horrendous. And with the development that's been happening further east in Marysville, it has made for, just, I think, a horrendous commute time. So that's going to be a really critical project. It's also really important for folks in Everett too, because East Marine View Drive has a lot of traffic and a lot of truck traffic. So I've gotten a lot of comments from folks that are like, how do we limit that? So I'm working with our city of Everett as well to see how we can, make it more desirable for folks to take that other option to get to I-5 and move those trucks along. So that's making sure those projects are in place. And I've gotten confirmation from Chair Phi that, those connecting Washington projects, especially the ones in our region, are the number one priority. We, have not been able to meet as a transportation committee in the past 3 weeks, just with kind of the changes. I know Senator Leas has been working really hard to get on board and meeting with a lot of different constituents across the state because we're thinking about all of these projects in terms of everyone that we're representing as a whole. But I'm going to be pushing for our Snohomish County projects. I'm going to be pushing for all of that in this process as we go through it. We're looking at, ways to take some of the dollars from the from the general fund, to put that towards transportation, especially where it makes sense. I think folks have talked about potentially tax on motor vehicles going to the transportation budget. Also, any of the sales tax that goes through transportation construction projects, because, you know, the idea there is that they wouldn't be possible without the transportation budget, putting forward dollars and investment in that. But it's going to be really difficult. Like again, shorter session, the more difficult it is to get these packages through. You really want to have something presented. And I can tell you, while we have made headway on revenue options within our committee and within leadership, we have not made a lot of movement on projects and project selection. So that's still open, which means that there's a lot of great opportunities there, but that also means that we're not far enough along. So yeah, I don't want to make any promises around this, but I will promise that we'll work as diligently as we can and make sure that we can put as many resources as we can into our transportation packages. Hello, Senator Wagner.
Hello, Senator Wagner. So sorry about the technical difficulties there. I'm glad that we got you on.
It's quite all right. Thank you. And I'm glad to finally get here this morning.
Yes. So with us, of course, let me do a more grand entrance. We have our 39th Legislative District Senator, Keith Wagner. Would you like to introduce yourself, Senator?
Certainly, Misha. Thank you. So I'm Keith Wagner, representing the 39th Legislative District. I serve as the Minority Whip. My committees are Ways and Means, Law and Justice, and I'm the ranking member on the Behavioral Health Subcommittee. Some of you may have seen me during the summer as a co-chair of the Tax Structure Work Group as well. And I live up in Cedar Woolley. We just got 3 inches of snow last night, so we're snowed in a little bit again. Hopefully you don't have that much down where you are right now. But you're all aware that we're going back to work very soon. Monday morning, we'll kick things off. Because of the pandemic, there's been a lot of flux in how we're going to do operations. I'm disappointed that we, at least for the near term, will not be able to take visitors in person. That was a change that was made just a few days ago. We had initially hoped to be able to take visitors in our offices. That changed due to Omicron. So we're going to evaluate that every 2 weeks. And if things ease up, hopefully we'll see some changes. And I don't know what has gone before, what you're expecting in terms of me speaking with you this morning, but I'm happy to take questions.
I have one question to kick us off here. Representative Wicks already had the pleasure of answering it, but given the positive economic forecast and influx of resources through COVID relief and federal money, what are you excited about heading into session, and what challenges are you anticipating?
Well, I am excited to see that we're going to hopefully be receiving some infrastructure money. And I heard Rep. Wicks speaking about transportation, and I presume on that topic, you know, with Senator Hobbs stepping down, or stepping up rather, and new chair of transportation, I'll be very interested to see what packages we can work out. You know, transportation is key to Snohomish, and a little bit of, I think, good news on that. You're all aware that we've redistricted a bit, and the 12th legislative district has come over. Senator Hawkins kind of got off to a good start and proposed a bill which I will co-sponsor that will include studies of the Highway 2 corridor, hopefully to get us primed in a way that if funds come available to us, we'll be, if not at the head of the line, near the head of the line, because you know how it is. Money comes forward, and if you don't have something on the shelf, a plan that you can pull off and say we're ready to go, you don't get anything. So I'm excited that Senator Hawkins has hit the ground running and is embracing his new district that will take effect. And hopefully we'll make some progress there. You know, 522, even though it's technically not my district, has been one of the things I focused on for the last several sessions. And we did make progress there, but we haven't seen any ground broken or any new pavement laid. So I'm hoping that we will get there soon and be able to take advantage of any of these federal funds.
Definitely. And what challenges are you anticipating?
Well, we know, so public safety is kind of our primary platform this year from my side of the aisle. I think that concern is shared on the other side of the aisle, that we need to go back and fix some of the legislation that conflicted or was confusing to our police officers. And we've seen a very rapid and distinct growth in crime across the board. I noted that in my town, property crime like auto theft went up since the implementation of those bills 100%. I don't know if that's reflected across the state. I would like to know that, but it seems very tied to the implementation of those bills, which caused a lot of confusion. So I think we need to go back and fine tune some of those things. One of the areas that troubles me most as a ranking member on behavioral health is the reticence of law enforcement to engage with people who are in behavioral health or substance abuse crisis right now. And they had in the past kind of been the first step to getting people help. That's not happening now. And we need to go back and fix legislation so that our law enforcement folks understand that they are not just allowed, but required to assist those people in need, because that's a first step towards help that's not happening right now. We need to go back and fix Blake. I don't think we did a good job there. Again, law enforcement can't really do anything. You get 2 chances to do drugs right in broad daylight on the street, and there's no opportunity for help right now except to offer it. You can't compel anybody to go. I think we need to fix that piece.
And thank you for that. One question that Representative Wicks was able to answer, I wanted to toss your direction as well. Thinking about the long-term care situation, obviously it's a little bit sticky, and would love to hear your thoughts on what you're expecting for the session.
Well, of course, Rep. Wicks was able to answer it because she's smarter than I am. But so I just have to tell you, I was against the Long-Term Health Care Act. I voted against it. I did vote to put on the ballot an initiative that would have allowed those funds to be invested so we could make that fund whole, make it fiscally stable. The voters voted overwhelmingly not to allow that. I would like to see it repealed. Particularly given the amount of money that we have coming into our coffers, we're in the multiple billions over the next biennium ahead of our budget. So I don't see a reason to take 58 cents per 100, which is really just a starting point. So there's a little idiosyncrasy to the way this works. The tax has to be 58 cents per 100 on January 1st of each year, but there's nothing that disallows an increase throughout the year as long as it returns to 58 cents per 100 by January 1st of the next year. So between the 1st of January and the 31st of December, to make that fund whole, that tax can go just about anywhere. There's no limit on it. And I see it as a direct income tax. I'd just like to see it repealed. I see there's a movement to suspend it. I think that reflects public sentiment. It's wildly unpopular.
Thank you, Senator Wagner. And then now I have a question for the two of you. I think we got caught up on the questions that I had previously asked. So we'll kick this one to Representative Wicks first. Looking at economic recovery moving into 2022, what tools should we be utilizing to ensure a vibrant and more resilient future?
That's a great question. And I think some of the things I had mentioned earlier, taking some of the funding from the federal government and investing in the short term will really help bolster and save funds in the long term. I think the work that Governor Inslee has done to increase the number of testing devices is going to be really important to keep people safe and keep businesses open. Doing that, masking up, being safe, the legislature's shifting gears and having more people work from home has been really important. But all these things that we can do in the short term to both, like I said, save dollars and then invest in these really important programs will be necessary. So, we don't really know how much long-term funding we have in the long term because there is some uncertainty about that, but what we can do in the short term will really build that up. Again, we've seen that our sales tax increased greatly over the last year and a half, and that's a testament to putting money back into the community. And with our state being so dependent on sales tax, 47% of our budget is dependent on that. That's really a critical thing to think about, especially as a lot of folks don't want to have an income tax, but sales tax is extremely volatile and it's extremely regressive for a lot of folks. So that's going to be a big piece too. And just starting those conversations around how we look at our tax code will be really necessary. Hopefully I answered that question. But again, I talked about so many great programs, and I'm sure Senator Wagner is working on some great budget provisos and capital budget investments that will really invest in our community, and making sure we get some transportation dollars in there too. Will put people back to work and really revitalize our community.
Thank you. Senator Wagner?
Yeah, and Rep. Wicks is very correct to point out that we don't know how long this budget surplus is going to last. And that's why it's very important to use that money in a way that we don't make over commitments on. So I would like to see those dollars put mostly to capital projects, building, transportation, or tax reduction. Things that we don't have to, that we can change in the future. A lot of times we take one-time money and commit it to things that go on forever. So I think we will be smart in the legislature to budget this money towards capital projects, so we actually have something at the end of the day to show, whether that's parks or bridges or transportation projects. There's a lot of things we can use it on, but we have to be careful not to expect that money in the long term. The other thing I would like to see, and this doesn't address the economic side of it, I'd like to see our rainy day fund plussed up and replenished, because we've utilized a lot of that money, and we never know when the next rainy day is coming.
Thank you. And now I want to turn to a question from the audience. A question from Kayla, an L&I question. Right now, there are bills which provide presumption of coverage for COVID infections for employees who are police, firefighters, medical providers, and frontline workers. There's also coverage for employees of businesses in the state fund, but the claims currently don't impact employers' experience rating or L&I premiums. Do you know if that will change in 2022? Employers are concerned about how their premiums could be impacted if they become responsible for medical bills related to COVID infections whenever there is a contention that the employee possibly contracted the infection at work, when it could have been anywhere. Anybody want to tackle that one first?
Well, I did mention Kayla privately, just I thought that was easier to make sure she got it. But I would really hope that someone she can send that email to me directly. I know that on the Labor Committee, my colleague, Representative Sells, who leads that committee, has been working on this. And I know there was some adjustments being made with Rep. Berry and Rep. Dan Bernowski as well. So I can get more information on this. I have to kind of dive back into that and see, but I know that that was a huge concern on the rate increases. And Rep. Berry had used a brewery in her district who would be paying probably 100 times this amount that they would. So we made some adjustments there, but I'd love to hear just a little bit more about the experience here and how we can work more fully on that. But I would, it's not really my area of expertise, but I'm happy to dive in and get answers.
Yeah, likewise. I don't sit on labor, but we are acutely aware of the emails we've received from businesses showing their concern for this. And I honestly, businesses shouldn't be punished for this. And I think that there are ways, particularly with our budget surplus, to move dollars around in a way that doesn't hurt business. I hope we can get there.
Thank you. Let's see if we have another question in the chat. Lance Calloway, what are your thoughts on allocating more funds to mental health services, facilities to address some of the underlying issues of homelessness?
I am in favor. Sorry.
Go ahead. Well, as I mentioned, I'm the ranking member on the Behavioral Health Subcommittee. So we have been working, and this is a committee that is really a lot of fun to be on, not because what we work on isn't serious work, but because it's such a bipartisan approach. Since the formation of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee, we have moved miles ahead in a very bipartisan way to put facilities in local communities and to fund those. Now, we're not there yet, and there is always a request for more in terms of Medicaid reimbursements and rate increases to provide our care providers with a decent wage so they'll stay in the business. So those are challenges that lie ahead. Senator Dingra has moved to chair the Law and Justice Committee, so she will no longer be chairing behavioral health, but Senator Frocht, who is a very experienced legislator, is the new chair. He and I are good friends and work well together. So I think we have the horsepower we need. We both sit on Ways and Means to make positive changes for behavioral health.
And I'll just add, that's great news to hear, because that's, again, not one of my committees. So great to hear that that's being worked on, and happy to support in whatever capacity I can.
Love this collaboration. I'm thinking about logistics. We've been through one virtual session. Obviously, we're heading into another virtual session. How does last year change your strategy? Are you more prepared, more terrified? And go.
I can start from the WIP's perspective because it's my job to keep track of members on my side of the aisle and know where people are. In a normal session, I look around the room and I see who's here and who's not here. And if Senator Wilson is off talking to a senator on this other side of the aisle, I sprint over and say, time to get back on the floor and vote. The virtual session changes all of that because somebody loses a signal. Like this morning, I couldn't find my login and couldn't get here. That has real consequences. So it's no fun when you see somebody on the screen maybe and they're trying to make a vote and it gets broke up and I have to call, and maybe they're in a place where it's a very complicated thing. We're only allowed, and the House is completely different. So Rep. Wicks can probably speak to that. I think they have even less people on the floor. In the case of the Senate, we have 8 Democrats and 7 Republicans allowed on the floor at a time to provide our social distancing. So that's 4 in leadership. I'm on the floor every time we're on the floor, and 3 rotating senators who get to come through. And it's complicated. It isn't easy. However, the ability to testify remotely like this really opens some things up. So there are some positives that we learned from the virtual session. And I hope that we're going to keep the positives and allow this remote testimony to continue even when we do have committees back in person.
Absolutely. I'll have to agree on that. And I think a lot of folks know about my Open Public Meetings Act legislation that would encourage our cities and counties and and local municipalities to be able to have virtual testimony and virtual attendance. So really important. I mean, we've been talking about this in the legislature, doing remote testimony for years, and it really forced us to move into that space. So I'm hoping it's here to stay. And I'm on the whip side too, on the House, a deputy assistant whip, but I definitely hear that. It's, it just kind of turned in from seeing people to making those phone calls. And as far as whether or not I'm scared, I think I'm just worried. The whole being shot out of a cannon thing is really real. And I think within the last 2 weeks, I've had folks reach out to me about drafting bills in the last 2 weeks. And so, bills that are not totally, I would say, clean, they're a little messy because they haven't done that stakeholdering work. So that's what's really kind of scared me, is just, I really thought I had my agenda and everything ready to go. And then a bunch of people came in, which tells me that we're all kind of, running behind and really needed that holiday to rest and relax. So some of those things are just a little scary with the unknowns, but I'll just put out there that I'm going to be dropping a few bills, but mostly for conversation purposes to really work on in the future. And that's kind of what I've done with a few bills from my first session as well. But it really helps us hone. It really helps us get the conversation out there and just to see how things land so that we can discuss that and know the stakeholders as well. So I'm obviously the time is just really nerve-wracking, but I think we'll be okay. We should take ourselves seriously, but we should also just recognize our limits and be okay with that. So sorry, I'm trying to give everybody some, sense of calm because I need it too.
I appreciate that. I will take in that calm and try and internalize it. Okay. Thank you both so much for participating today. Those are all of the questions that I had, unless I missed something in the chat. Gary or Katie can let me know. But if not, I just want to say again, thank you so much, Senator Wagner and Representative Wicks, for being here, and I'll pass it on over to Gary.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you again to our legislators who joined us today. Senator Wagner, Representative Wicks, and as well as Kelly Snyder, Snohomish County Public Works. We really appreciate all of the businesses and partners and elected officials who joined us today on this call. And again, I'd like to thank our sponsors as well. And that goes to show you that we are very swift on the get up here, as you can see. I want to thank Community Transit as well as the Boeing Company. And also we'd like to give you a teaser about what's coming up next. And if you have been to any of our coffee chats, you know that there is always an amazing opportunity to learn a little bit about what's going on in Snohomish County and beyond. And so coming up January 11th on Tuesday from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. we have Talent and Recovery. And then again, save the date, please, for Advocacy Days, January 20th through the 21st. Again, we really appreciate you all joining us today. Again, we are Economic Alliance Snohomish County. We can't do any of this work without your assistance and help and partnership. And again, opportunity lives here. Please have an amazing day. Thank you.